Hi, Jerry. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for being a brand ambassador for VoterSafe, and it's going to be a fun journey ahead of us, and plenty of stories will be told, I'm sure.
We're very happy to be involved.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What's what are you doing nowadays? I understand that you're heavily involved in court cases and criminal cases with drowning
Right.
involved.
Our company is twofold. We're involved as experts in drowning and aquatic injury cases throughout the U.S. as well as internationally. I've had over 500 drowning and aquatic injury cases to date and currently have an active caseload of about 60 cases. But these involve open water, rivers, water parks, swimming pools, apartment complexes, HOAs, private resident homes, and so forth.
So you understand drowning. There's a lot of drowning going across the country. How
Right.
does Aqua fit into that?
Well, the other thing that we do is we conduct training programs primarily for the public safety and rescue sector, police, fire, EMS, and so forth, as well as for lifeguards. And Aqua fits in perfectly because although we're dealing with surface water rescue, we advocate continuously the need to locate the last seen point and identify the approximate area of the victim while you're waiting for the dive teams to arrive. The Aqua Eye is a perfect opportunity to do just that. Once you have the witness statements who have identified the last seen point, you can get that, implement the use of the Aqua Eye to basically identify the exact area where the victim is located. When the dive team comes, you direct them exactly to that area if you can't already engage in a recovery or rescue yourself.
Exactly. So the surface water rescue teams can go to work and get going on the drowning scene and get more information.
Exactly. What we've seen a lot is once the victim's below the surface, the firefighters and the first responders are standing around with their hands in their pockets. If you can't get under there and probe and you don't have the mechanism in place for search and rescue, then again, you can identify the last seen point, you can identify the exact location of the victim, so that once the dive team arrives, they can go ahead and implement the dive and perform the rescue or recovery.
Yeah, and would you agree that public perception is everything on a drowning scene? If you can get the boys to work, the boys and girls to work, then then Aqua Eye is really leading the way there. We can get them in the water, get them started.
Exactly. And I can tell you that as a firefighter, the Aqua Eye is where thermal imaging was 15 years ago. Right now, every fire department is using thermal imaging, a TIC camera. This does the same thing, but for underwater. So I think it's perfect for the fire and rescue and other first responders.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. So Jerry, what's your company name?
The company is Life Saving Resources. We're located in Kennebunkport, Maine, but develop educational curriculums in water rescue, ice rescue, surf rescue, swiftwater rescue, and lifeguard training. And we conduct this training throughout the U.S. as well as internationally.
And what sort of water hazards do you respond to in Kennebunkport?
Well, in Kennebunkport, we've got ocean, we've got rivers, and we've got open ponds and so forth, but primarily rivers and ocean.
And in season, you have recreators paddling, canoeing, kayaking, you name it, swimming, snorkeling. It's all happening here.
Correct. Now, I'm also a firefighter with the Kennebunkport Fire Department. In the past several weeks, we've already had 3 boat calls, which normally we might get 3 boat calls a season, but we've already had 3 boat calls. So the recreators are out, the novices are here. Uh, Environment plus novices equals stupidity, and stupidity equals job security. Unfortunately,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just curiosity: are they all wearing life jackets? I
no,
mean,
they're
so
not.
so most of them are not wearing life jackets.
Many of them are not. And what's amazing is you get kayakers in 50-degree water, and they don't realize the fact that if they fall out or fall over, they're in 50-degree water. They have an active struggle time of maybe 10 minutes before they lose dexterity due to hypothermia and so forth. So people don't understand the fact that anything colder than 70 degrees is considered to be cold water. And in Maine, we don't get 70-degree water until maybe September.
Right. And so what would your average response team by the time you get the team together? Response time, sorry.
Well, our response time here is slow. It's we're a volunteer fire department or a paid-on-call fire department, so people need to respond from work or from home. They respond to the fire station. They connect the boats to the trucks and respond to the areas. And there are only certain points where we can launch, depending upon where the call is located. And if we're dealing with low tide, then we have an additional factor to contend with.
Which would be?
Well, which would be if we don't have sufficient depth and we need to get from point A to point B, we need to find an alternative route to get from point A to point B.
Got it. Understood. So you're usually within the golden hour, the rescue hour, and then you transfer into a recovery mode.
Correct.
Got it. Got it.
But in terms of life jackets and such, we've got some livery companies, unfortunately, that will rent a boat or rent a standard stand-up paddleboard. They may issue a life jacket, or they will issue a life jacket, but there's no requirement for the public to wear that life jacket while they're on the stand-up paddleboard. I've got two cases right now, one in California, one in Maryland, where people drowned while using a stand-up paddleboard because they weren't wearing the appropriate PFD. And one of my cases, the person was issued a inflatable life jacket. Well, you need to have a level of skill so that you can support yourself in the water and then deploy the life jacket if you're using inflatable. And because they didn't have a leash, the board got away from the individual. He was a poor swimmer and he's struggling to stay afloat and couldn't deploy his life jacket. So there needs to be more common sense on the part of the livery services as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So apart from ambulance, EMS, fire and police, who else responds?
Well, lifeguards. This would be an excellent tool for use by lifeguard personnel. In a pool setting, we talk about the 10-20 rule. You have 10 seconds by which to identify a victim and 20 seconds by which to respond. That's in a pool setting. And we have layers that we look at in a pool, the surface, the middle, and the bottom. And the water is supposed to be transparent. So if we miss the victim at the surface, we can see them when they're in the middle or on the bottom. When we're dealing with open waterfront lifeguarding, once the victim goes below the surface of the water, unless somebody has identified the fact that the victim is missing in the approximate location, we have no idea where he is. And if the victim struggles in less than 10 seconds, we may not be able to identify the victim. So therefore, once the victim is submerged and somebody identifies the fact that the last seen point was there, this would be an excellent tool for a waterfront lifeguard to use to identify the location of the victim while we're waiting for either first responders to arrive, or at the same time, if the water is less than 12 feet deep, we can send our lifeguards out there and to be surface diving in the approximate area where the victim is.
So do you believe if it was on a proactive lifeguard stand during hours, if someone went down and Aqua Eye was deployed, do you think that Aqua Eye could speed up recovery time, rescue time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, in a swimming pool setting, we can see the victim. If we miss him at the surface, we'll see him in the middle, we'll see him on the bottom. In an open waterfront, a facility, if you miss him at the surface, we have no idea where the victim is unless somebody gives us an approximate location. And once we have that approximate location and we identify where the victim is, we can be surface diving while we're waiting for the first responders and dive teams to arrive.
In your experience, have you ever seen anything like this come along to assist with rescue and recovery of drowned victims?
No. And again, this is where we were looking at thermal imaging cameras with the fire departments years ago. So this is a tremendous device that we can now use without putting people at risk to identify our location of the victim so we can perform a rescue and recovery.
So Jerry, if anyone wants to get back to you, do they have to contact Life Saving Resources?
Yes, our website is lifesaving.com. My email is gerald@lifesaving.com, and we'll be glad to answer any questions about the Aqua Eye.
All right. So, well, thanks very much, Gerald, for having me. Thanks very much for being a brand ambassador. It was great chatting and great getting to know what you do and all about life-saving resources.
Great.